Namaskar and welcome to Indian Diplomacy, show on India's national broadcaster Doordarshan about Indian foreign policy, India's international relations and trends and phenomena which have an impact on India's rise as a major power in the world. Viewers, in this episode we are looking critically at a big problem that is not just limited to India but to the developing world as a whole, biased and prejudiced portrayals of the global south in the western media. Why has India been targeted persistently with negative and hostile coverage in the western media? Why are western media so hell-bent on trying to prevent and block India's rise as a major power? And what are the ideologies and structures that underlie this disinformation campaign? What can be done to fight back, and how can we establish a different information order in the world? These are the themes that we are going to be discussing, and to take up this theme I have a very special and knowledgeable guest, a well-known author and journalist Umesh Upadhyay ji, who is joining me in the studio. Umesh ji, welcome.
Namaste, namaskar to everyone.
Umesh ji is the author of this very well-regarded new book called Western Media Narratives on India from Gandhi to Modi, from Rupa Publications. It's out there, viewers, for all of you to take a look. But we are going to be covering the key points raised in this book with Umesh ji. Umesh ji, it's a very hard-hitting book that you have written, and you have raised many salient points about this problem that we are discussing, which is the inherent, inbuilt ideological and structural bias and hostility of the Western media towards India and other developing countries. And I'd like you to start by talking about the big point you've made, which is about the close association of the origin and the rise of the Western news media, print and electronic, and how these are connected to empire and to structures of domination in the world.
You know, media, Western media per se, we are talking about the Western dominant English media, that is presented to us as a narrative that they are factual, they are unbiased, that they talk about only truth. Now, I challenge that. I challenge not on basis of any theory, but facts. So you say that how they are related to empire. I don't have to say that. They say it themselves. I've said in my book, Lord Curzon, everybody knows. He was also Chancellor of Oxford University. In the beginning of last century, in the first inaugural presidential speech in Oxford University, he said, look, we produce civil servants and also we produce journalists. And he said, and these journalists are live rails, like live rails to the empire. So you have already described what journalists are for. The empire, the basic construct of empire was to create a narrative. The narrative was that I am coming to you, a country like me, India, Bharat, or other countries, because I am superior, because you are inferior. Now, who built that narrative?
The white man's burden and civilizing
White man's
nation,
burden. So, basically, media was a tool. Media was developed as a tool to take this narrative forward, that they are racially superior, culturally better, which is not factual,
Yeah.
And if you see the Western media's coverage, right from beginning till today, it's like this.
Yeah.
They will call Gandhi a fakir, half-naked fakir. That's Churchillian view of Gandhi.
Yeah.
But if you see the media there, it's always there. And then I come to, so empire, you know, after Second World War, it was no more possible to keep empire intact physically. So they started an exercise of mental subjugation. Even today, the colonization of minds is still an enterprise which is taken forward by the Western media. And who is behind it? The new empires of today.
And Umesh, that's a close link you have made, and it will be of great interest to our viewers. On one hand, they say we come from democratic societies, and so we are not state run and we are independent and free and not agents of state. But on the other hand, you have shown consistently throughout the book how they reflect the values of their respective regimes or state establishments, and how they push the lines of their foreign policy. I found very interesting part in the book about post-independence India, where you spoke about how, because we adopted a policy of non-alignment, there was this consistent character assassination of India that was being carried out by the Western media at the behest of the establishments. And you have even challenged the claim of the BBC and so many of them that we are actually not really representing any state and we are free and we are independent. So this linkage between the states, their agendas and their foreign policies and the coverage, you have shown with so many examples, not only the British but also the American and many other Western media, Europeans.
2 points that you're raising. One, that they are not funded by
State.
Yeah, I'll come back to that. And the other point you are saying that they are independent because they are not funded by the states. They are independent.
That is a claim, yeah.
That's a claim. That's a claim, but that's not true. A committee was formed in 1977 in India. I mentioned that committee's report, and it was a parliamentary committee, and their journalists were also included in India. And the committee, in so many words, says that to say that they are not funded is not correct. AFP was funded by France directly. BBC is funded by UK Commonwealth Office directly. So it's a fallacy. It's make us believe. Okay, and then I'll come to some examples. Now they say that they are unbiased and they don't take a view. Yes, when it comes to their domestic politics, they are sometimes critical of the policies. But when it comes to the larger narrative of the Western world and against others, they are very clear. After independence, there was a conflict between PTI and Reuters. I'll give you an example, and I've narrated that. Now, they did not agree to PTI's independence because PTI was portraying India's relationship with the East in a more positive manner, whereas the Western media was subsumed by anti-communism.
And they were frustrated that India did not join the Western camp. Yeah.
Western camp. So you are taking a side. I'll come to now. Our honorable foreign minister, during these elections, Indian elections, Western media tried to influence these elections.
Yes.
They wrote commentary after commentary saying that if a particular government comes or a particular individual, Mr. Modi comes as a prime minister, then democracy will go away in India. What on earth? What are you saying? Prime Minister Modi has been elected by the people of India under an independent election commission, 2014, 2019, 2024. What makes you say? So Jaishankar ji says that they think they are a player in the elections. They want to influence the elections. They have not got away with their Raj mindset. They think they are still ruling us, ruling our minds. And then I'll say you, if you raised another point that they are democratic, but I would paraphrase this quite a lot. If they were democratic and they were really worried about democracy in the world, and they were thinking that democracy should come up, why did they help Pakistan throughout, which has never been a democracy?
Because it allied with the US. So, you were very clear about it.
And every time they would condemn us, criticize us, our elections, our system, anything to do with India. Whenever we do something right, okay, 1.4 billion people respect the mandate given by them. Who are you to dictate and tell me if a person is elected, it's autocratic?
Oh, it's a threat to democracy.
Threat to democracy.
Yeah.
India is a civilizational democracy. Our democracy, yes, constitution gives us right, but we are a civilizational democracy. We are civilizationally plural nation. We respect each and every shred of opinion. In Hindi we say we are bahultabadi. Fundamentally we are that.
Yes.
So if you were supporting us, you were supporting democracies, you should have been there from 1947 till no. Always, right from Chandrayaan launch to Mangalyaan launch, right from question of eradication of poverty in India, right from ISRO's rockets. Every time you take a view, I'll just give you an example of BBC because you talked about funding.
Yeah.
Now, when Chandrayaan was launched, there was a discussion in BBC where he said, oh, look, you have launched, ISRO has launched Chandrayaan, but you have still 60 crore people without toilets, and you have, people still hungry. Why should a country hungry and, have no access to toilet should launch rockets? Let me ask this question to BBC very directly. As per British data, there are 20% people who are as described in poor in Britain.
Yeah.
Their data. 20% of Britishers are poor. They are destitutes, they are homeless. Why did they spend so much money on, Rajyarohan or, coronation of a 74-year-old king? Did they ask this question to them? When you ask this question to us, that why are you spending money on ISRO and scientific development? And mind you, we are spending that money to eradicate poverty.
Yeah. Of course, our space missions
Our space program
benefit the poor and the developing world at large.
So these double standards, you will spend millions and you show millions and billions of dollars on showing the coronation, but question every bit of scientific development that India achieves it.
Yeah. And Umesh, in fact, that brings me to the point, this condescending attitude that we often see has to do with their notion, and you have traced it back to the early European explorers and all the way up to Churchill and beyond, their notion that Indians cannot govern themselves or are incapable or are lacking in the kind of qualities or attributes that the West always had. That's a very inbuilt thing, isn't it? And they now it has become more subtle. Earlier it was very open and brazen. So that idea that we are incapable or that we have some deficiencies which do not allow us to do well in the world. Increasingly the facts are going the other way, and you have shown how India is doing so well in so many parameters. But I want to take up one of the seminal episodes in the book with regard to this misnomer that India fails and India is destined to fail. You showed how successful we have managed the biggest public health crisis of the century with the COVID-19. For about 3 years we battled it, and you have shown, you have really dissected how they made up their mind ahead of time that India will fail, and how they projected that we will have tens of millions of casualties, and you've shown how none of this came to pass, but they kept on pushing this argument until the facts came out that actually India is one of the most successful cases given the density of our population and all that. We actually came out of COVID. The World Health Organization itself said that India's model of fighting COVID was one of the best in the world, but still the Guardian, the New York Times, the Washington Post, BBC, CNN, they kept going and to show India in a poor light. So this kind of lack of objectivity has really exposed them, and you have done that in the book. And yet they claim that India is something to hide, or India is incapable. So let's talk a little bit about this attitude of theirs, which is their superiority complex. You said that the empire has ended, but they have been pushing the same superiority complex on us. And now, even though the facts are there, they're unwilling, and you've challenged their professionalism as journalists. So let's talk a little bit about the professionalism of the Western media houses in the context of the COVID crisis and how they covered it.
And if you see the COVID history, basically the first case in India was on 30th January 2020. The cases started happening at a much faster speed in March, April, May. In fact, if you see the end of March, the cases were in numbers, 100, 200, 300, 400. But if you see the Western trajectory, from January, February, there was a mayhem in West. You see Italy, you see Europe, you see other countries of Europe, you see America. In March and April, February, Italy was besieged with number of dead bodies. So was US. Now at that time we had very little, very less numbers. So the Western, they could not reconcile this idea. We are so much developed, our health systems are so good. They claim that they are good. I don't believe that they are so good. So they started writing about India in March, end of March. 24th March, we had a lockdown, nationwide lockdown. 24th March, after 24th March, we see 27, 28, 29, 30th, 31st of March, their commentary. And what are they writing? They're saying, look, now the COVID is devastating Western world now. What will happen if it comes to India? All right, nothing wrong about it. But then in the next sentence or the next para, they'll say, look, what happened in 1918 during the Spanish flu? Look what happened in 1943, Bengal famine. So they will very smartly, cleverly bring those numbers and try to frighten us.
A doomsday, create a doomsday.
Doomsday. So you are not Jyotishis, you are a professional writers. Write down, okay, this happened in India, but don't make conjectures that this is going to happen. Now this didn't happen. We started, yes, COVID was a difficult time. Let me admit it. It was as difficult for the Western world as for us. And it was not India's creation. India was a victim of Corona. India was not originator of Corona. Let's understand it.
And still you say they've used words like Indian variant of
Indian
COVID
variant,
and all that.
etc. And I'll give you one example. So their theory, their narrative was that India will not be able to cope up with it.
Yeah, collapse. That's what
they'll say. It will collapse. It will, Now, New York Times comes with a number, and I'll just give you this example. I've talked about BBC. Let me talk about New York Times now. It comes with a number, 25th May 2021, that India's numbers are very high. And they claim that 4.2 million people are dead in India. And how did they calculate? See the calculation. They said, look, there are 70 crore people infected with Corona in India. 70 crore, mind you. Note down this number. And they calculated if 70 crore are, infected, then 4.2 billion would have died. Now, at that, India's population is 1.4. 140 crore, which means every second Indian is down. Is that correct? I'll give you another number. The total number of infections in the world in December 2023 was 69 crore, total number. How could you say 2 years ago that India had 70 crore?
More than the entire rest of the world together.
Rest of the world? Yeah. What made you, even a cub reporter would do their calculations right? They did not do it because somehow they wanted to prove that Modi government could do nothing right. That was their narrative right from 2014. So Corona gave them an opportunity to, for a Modi bashing. It was not a Modi bashing time. You have a political difference, please. But it was a pandemic and we were victim of it. Then 4.2 million, they said. Then they thought that, oh, there's something wrong. Then they came up with a story in July, same. They thought 35 lakhs. I followed this story, Professor. and I checked in January 2024. What is New York Times saying? Now they are saying, yes, India only 5.35 lakh 30,000 people have died.
Less than 1 million, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You made a mistake at that time. Be professional enough. Come and apologize to people of India that you made a terrible professional mistake. It was a miscalculation. If you are man enough, if you are a professional journalist, you owe it to the government of India, owe it to the people of India to apologize on if it was a miscalculation.
Yeah, it was
and if it is not a miscalculation, if it is by design, I'm sure they will never apologize. So these are the narratives that are built to tell us that you are incapable of administrating yourself. You cannot deal with a crisis. Whereas Corona shows.
We are proving them wrong. Umesh ji, you have shown the problem but also the solution in this book. And viewers, Umesh ji has talked about a new world information and communication order. And this is of course the aspiration of the global south, which has often been at the receiving end of this kind of prejudice and bias and hateful reporting and misrepresentation that we talked about. Now, you have made the case that India, because the world's largest democracy, one of the most successful democracies in the world with an open society and all that, that we are best positioned to lead this new world information order. And you've contrasted it with China, which is a closed authoritarian dictatorship, and while they have propaganda, it's not believable, and the rest of the world doesn't buy the news coming out from China because, for obvious reasons, because it's a very closed and controlled society. But India can do it, you're saying, and you've made the case that it'll take a long time, but we have to work towards it. It's not just the work of government or like Doordarshan, for example. We are also trying at our, in our own small way. But you're saying it requires a whole of society approach and many other players. Our private media also. It's mostly nationalistic, and unfortunately some of them have played into the hands of the Western media. But you have said that we have to break out of the mental slavery and the stranglehold of believing the Western media to be the superior or of the higher quality news, right? So how can we build this new world information and communication order, and how can India lead? Please tell our audience.
Yeah. How do we come out of it? Just crying over a spilt milk does not help us. We have to come out of this mental slavery. These are last vestiges of colonization. I think this colonization of minds has to be fought tooth and nail. Every day we have to fight it. Now, India is supremely positioned to create this leadership of the global south. How can India? We have a very vibrant press. Or somebody is, with someone, somebody is, it's okay.
That's fine.
It's a vibrant democracy. Very vibrant press, very open system. Indian society is very open. We have technological prowess. We are helping the world in technology. So we have technological manpower, human manpower, money. Now India is, fifth largest economy in the world. We are thinking of, going third largest. It is incumbent upon us to provide leadership to the global south in terms of narrative building. Because we could, as we were talking about Corona, we could cope up with their, games and designs. But think of the smaller nations in Africa, the smaller nations in
Asia and Latin America. Yeah.
Latin America. They have no wherewithal to do it. Then we have a very open architecture in the society in terms of narrative building. I think new world information where we are seen from our lenses. And I'll just give you an example when I say we are seen from our lenses. If I ask anyone in this studio, how many cities are in, you name 5 cities in Sri Lanka? I think after Colombo, we don't know. If I ask how many cities are in Malaysia, after Kuala Lumpur, I don't know. How many cities are in Burma or Myanmar? After Rangoon, very difficult. These are all our neighbors. But if I ask how many, name 10 cities in US, everybody will name. 5 cities in UK, everybody will name. So I don't know my neighbors because I'm looking at my neighbors from your blinkered eyes.
Via the Western lenses.
Via the blind. So we need our own lenses.
Our own knowledge production.
Knowledge production. So Global South, India is poised as a leader to provide this new world information order. And I wanted to say, it is not government's job. It is civil societies, India's entrepreneurs, India's technological prowess, India's technological giants, they have to come together.
Absolutely.
They have to come together and provide this leadership. Government's job is not to provide a narrative. Government job is to run the country. Yeah, government can support it from back. Yes, we are there. But I think India is capable. It is incumbent upon India to provide new world information order. So this colonization ends.
Well, viewers, what a fascinating conversation I've just had with Umesh Upadhyay ji. I hope you got the gist of it, which is that there is a struggle for the narrative, not just about what's happening in India, but across the developing world. And we have not had the resources and the manpower to be able to put up the alternative narrative that goes out there and influences opinions all over the world. But this is the time. India is rising. India has got the capabilities today compared to post-independence era. We are far ahead, and we are making progress on so many fronts, and we've got the means to be able to do this. And so it's actually a call. What Umesh Upadhyay is doing is to call upon well-meaning Indians as well as people from across the world, including people of the Western world also, who have often been misled about India through these biased media sources, that we should all come together to build a fairer world. Remember, viewers, Dr. Jaishankar, our External Affairs Minister, says we are not anti-Western, but we are non-West. So we don't aim to increase hostility with Western powers. What we are looking at here is to try and build a better understanding of rising powers like India. So do read this book by Umesh Upadhyay ji and think deep about the critical points. I hope that Umesh ji, you will have a sequel to this, because this problem is not going to go away, and there will be going to be many more examples, because they are very thick-skinned and they will dismiss whatever we are saying. But we are not aiming to convert them. We are aiming to convert the general public, who must, like you said, shed the the vestiges of colonialism, and do not take a New York Times or a BBC or a CNN or a foreign policy or a foreign affairs as the mecca or as the acme of the last word on any issue. So I hope that we valorize our own content, our own experts, our own intellectuals, our own journalists, and hopefully this new world or information order will be built by first giving up the trappings of the past, and that's how we write a glorious future. So thank you so much for joining me on Indian Diplomacy. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So viewers, do think about Western media bias. It's not something that we have concocted. It's Umesh Upadhyay's book gives dozens of examples from the last 500 years or longer, when Western media and Western knowledge production has been aimed at belittling and crushing the aspirations and the rights of people of the Global South. We continue to be the voice of the Global South, and so India hopefully will take the lead on this matter, and we will see a different global media landscape in the coming decades, where finally we have broken through the dead weight of millennia of colonization, slavery and domination by one power center or one part of the world. So keep watching Indian Diplomacy. I'll see you again next time. Until then, take care.